Oh, we got one more.
Yeah.
Cory's gonna sit down.
I'm Klay, I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Klay.
My sobriety date is not that long ago, 8/31/24. I want to say thank you to everybody who's talked, and everyone who's a part of PPG and welcome me in your home group. It's good to have a new beginning, new sponsor, Mike, new grand sponsor that I got to meet today, and Mark. It's been an honor to be here. It's my first time ever at a workshop, and thankful to be a part of it. It's an honor. Like I said, my name's Klay. I'm introducing meeting etiquette, or introducing the topic of meeting etiquette. People speaking are Cory B, Mark G, and Jack E. With that, can we start the meeting off with the Serenity Prayer, please? God, grant us serenity to accept things I cannot change, the courage to change things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference.
Cory?
Thanks, Klay.
Thanks, Klay.
Thanks, Klay.
Cory, I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Cory.
Great to see you all. Thanks for being here. Super grateful to be here, be a part of PPG. It's unlike anything else. My sobriety date is May 19, 2021. And I'm an alcoholic. I don't know, I've been asked to speak about meeting etiquette today. I haven't really thought too much about it. I think maybe recently there's been a couple issues popping up related to meeting etiquette. And what even does that mean, meeting etiquette? It's like correct behavior, you know what I mean? I guess if we're at an AA meeting, it's not really my responsibility to police the meeting in any kind of way, or it's just, I think from my own perspective, what do I do to have good etiquette, what I consider good etiquette? And just from perspective, when I got early, I went to a lot of meetings, and I went to a lot of meetings for a long time. So I'm going on 4 years. I'll have 4 years in May, so I'm like 3.5-ish right now. And probably for the first 2 years, honestly, I went to 7 to 10 meetings a week. And I don't say that to brag or nothing. It's because like some people said, I didn't really have anything better to do. You know what I mean? And what else am I going to do but come to the place that basically saved my life? So I spent a lot of time in meetings, and like it's been said a couple times as well, that some meetings are better than others. I mean, no meeting is definitely not the right meeting, but and again, it's just the way I see meetings and the way that people do things at different meetings at different home groups. Not that they're doing the wrong thing or the right thing. Again, it's not really my place to judge, but what works for me and what I see working for other people, and what I see not working for other people is like the differences there are pretty stark. So I mean, like, I guess etiquette, like to consider like crosstalk for a moment, right? Like if I'm sitting in a meeting, what am I there for? Ultimately, I'm there to get back to the group, but that doesn't mean I should just stand up whenever I want and put in my 2 cents, right? Like there's this period of like, I need to be patient and sit, to wait my turn essentially, to speak my mind. And then, like, even when I'm speaking my mind, I have to be conscious of like, I'm not speaking my mind in order to offend somebody. Because sometimes that'll come up, like if, let's say like someone brings up like, principles over personality or whatever, and they're really just like being catty about something and like trying to like, I don't know, undercut each other based on, it can be, I guess it can be a weird thing. But yeah, so like crosstalk, obviously like I'm gonna wait my own turn to speak. I'm gonna speak from my own experience. I really shouldn't be telling anybody else's story unless it relates somehow to my own experience or the topic at hand. I mean, staying on topic, that's a big one. I think if I'm gonna have good meeting etiquette, I gotta like be paying attention, and if the topic is about the big book and I'm talking about my cats, it's probably not good etiquette to be that far off topic, right? I mean, we recently made some changes to our own format, and I was actually having a discussion with my mom this morning about this. She's talking about basically cross-talking meetings, and she's now not or whatever, but like what it sounds like to me is like you guys are trying to control each other in what you say, and well, this person's off topic and that person's off topic and whatever. I was telling her, like, we just changed our format actually to talk about, if you don't have experience in this area, like here's where the meeting's at. This is what we're talking about today. If you don't have experience in this area, please don't comment. Please listen and open yourself up to learning something new. And I was telling Regan, what usually happens is that no one really listens to that at all, and they comment anyways, whether they have experience or not, right? So is that good or bad etiquette? I think it's good etiquette on my part to not stand up and call people out and be like you're off topic and blah blah blah. Like the love that is patient and kind. I can show that whether or not someone's, in my mind, doing the right thing or the wrong thing, right? I mean, I don't know, meeting etiquette, it's just definitely an interesting topic to even think about. Sean mentioned like going out of town and being like, I'm from Akron, and like, is that good etiquette? I don't know. Like, I guess if they're asking where you're from and you're saying I'm from Akron or whatever, I guess maybe the expectation being, I don't know. I've never been in an out of town meeting, so maybe I shouldn't comment on that. So yeah, it's poor etiquette on my part. Bad show. So one thing I will say though too is that I'm like super into music and I'm super into guitar. And one thing I did early on was I'd be bringing my guitar to meetings, and I would bring it to the Dry People's Club a lot. I'd bring it to the Paradise Club a lot. And I'm not playing in the middle of the meeting. You know what I mean? I never did that. I never thought that would be a good idea. But even the idea of going to a club and having like all that gear and like setting up and being outside and playing, like there's a time and a place. There really is. And not like really, and I don't want to say I'm trying to showboat or whatever. Like, I just like to sit down and play. Like, and I play for myself. And I don't really play for other people in a sense. Like, I play because it gives me peace, and then if it gives someone else peace, then that's cool to me. But there's still a time and a place to be doing things, right? I don't really need a guitar to me. Like, none of you guys brought your guitars today. I know it's that kind of thing. I remember one time though, like I was outside, and this was not during the meeting, but I was outside and I was playing guitar, and someone was like, "Hey, can you stop for a minute?" Because I just, they're having a conversation. Like, I just need you to stop for 5 minutes. And I put it down, and I just didn't pick it up. And I was like, I was resentful. You know what I mean? It was very early on for me, and I was pretty resentful about that. But also, like, it made me realize that there's a time and place. So I don't know. At this point, I'm kind of rambling. I think again, like, to have the common courtesy and the love and tolerance and patience and kindness towards others for sure is going to go a long way. But also, I think we're going to learn about this a little bit later, the toxic timidity. That doesn't mean I'm supposed to like let people walk all over me, and it doesn't really mean that I'm not supposed to speak up if I actually should say something. So, I mean, again, there's time and place. Am I going to call a guy out in the middle of a meeting like, hey, you really shouldn't say that? Or can I wait till after the meeting? Little distractions like cell phones and things like that. I mean, it always bugs me because, even if you're pulling up the big book to look at it, and I'm guilty of this too, by the way. I've been over there looking at my phone, checking the time. I keep looking over here, the recorder or whatever. And I mean, it is what it is, but it's a distraction. And if I'm on my phone in a meeting, even if I'm being righteous about what I consider I'm doing right, I know there's someone else looking at me that says, why is that guy on his phone? Does he need to be on his phone? They don't know I'm looking up the big book. They probably think I'm on Facebook or something, right? So it's just something to keep in mind. But am I leading by example, right? And we talked about that a lot today in kind of like an indirect way. Like, am I, is what I'm doing in a meeting or outside of a meeting for that matter, is it a good example for the newcomer? And I think that's really something to keep in mind. And with that, I'm going to pass. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hi, everybody. I'm Alcoholic. My name's Mark. This one, text during the meeting real quick and take a couple screenshots. Okay, it's sobriety date is December 22nd, 1994. My home group is the Mount Vernon Nothing Else Work Big Book Study. Meeting etiquette. This is a hot button for me. I was really glad to be put on this one. Mike and I actually talked a little bit about it. He goes, "Do you want to be on that?" I said, "Oh, absolutely. Absolutely." And the reason is because when I came into the fellowship, it was a different fellowship. You didn't have these things. These, I mean, literally the ones that in '94 were this big and you couldn't hide them for anything. And there was no such thing as texting. But I was told early on, about 10 minutes before the meeting would start, do you need a cup of coffee? Go get it now. Do you need to go to the bathroom? Go now. When the meeting starts, shut up and sit down. Do not be a distraction to other people. That's what I was told. And my sponsor at the time, I asked him, I said, okay, I get that. I said, but explain to me a little bit further. And he says, do you want to be that person that might come in between that word coming from the speaker or whoever's commenting, going to that person that those set of words may absolutely transform where they're at in their recovery? And do you want to be the person that gets in between that? And I said, never. Because I was so grateful that I was brought up in the era of AA where if someone was talking, the old timer would spin around and say, shh, the meeting's going. Or take it outside. I'm so grateful because I was able to hear pretty much everything that was said in the meetings, good, bad, or indifferent. And the newcomer, anybody else in the meetings, newcomer, old timer, doesn't matter. We're learning something all the time. I certainly learn something all the time, but I want to make sure that I afford them the opportunity and not become that barrier to recovery for them. So it is there's so many things to talk about in etiquette. I actually, I don't know if anybody else ever does this, but I start thinking I know a word and what it means and so on and so forth, and I found so many times when I look it up, it's not what I thought it was. But I looked it up, and it says that it is a socially acceptable way to behave in a public situation or a certain situation. Something that everybody can agree on, which would be something that would be, I would consider today, especially in Alcoholics Anonymous, a selfless type of behavior, where it's not about me. That text can wait. That phone call can wait. I don't want to be hindrance to somebody else's recovery. Having said that, there's another thing I want to touch on, because I've seen this happen time and time again, and it angers me, and I've had to work many 4 steps on this. Is that when I see men and women together in the meetings, and I see men and sometimes women would have some time under their belt, and a newcomer come in and they pounce all over of the opposite sex. I was told early on to stay away from the women in the fellowship, that they deserve the chance to recover, that you will get in between their recovery if you start doing it. Now, that gets to be a sensitive topic with some people, because I have seen some amazing relationships come out of people dating people early in sobriety. However, I have also seen tragedies, and way more of those. I've seen people get together and they just leave. They never come back, and then I hear that they died. And so, for me, thankfully I'm married to a woman that would hurt me deeply, physically, if I was paying attention to a new girl. But I also understand the etiquette is that if I'm going to talk to a new girl, and I've talked to many new girls in recovery, and what I do is I point them immediately to another woman in recovery. Someone that can sit down with them and take them through the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous so they can recover. So meeting etiquette is just, like I said, a real hot button too. For me, there was one other thing that I was going to bring up on this topic. Maybe I'm not supposed to. Give it a second. That's what's it. Jack's probably got it if I don't. That's the biggest thing. I need to be thinking of others. I need to not be thinking so much of me. I know what it was. It was the fact of, should we say something in a meeting? Yeah, there are times. I remember one time specifically, there were a couple of young ladies that were in the recovery house down in Mount Vernon at the Saturday night meeting, and it was a big meeting. And there were people there that were trying to hear the lead, but all you could hear was them talking on the other side of the room, and they were asked to be quiet twice. And I've never done this. And I'm sure that's the topic coming up, the toxic timidity topic is probably what this is about, so I'm not going to talk on it, but I knew that, number one, I deserved to hear that message. And the people all around those two girls needed to hear that message. So I was able to summon the courage. For me, it takes courage to do that. I'm not a person who confronts people. I'm not comfortable in confrontations whatsoever. But I went over to them and told them in no uncertain terms that they're welcome to talk, but they need to go outside. There are people around them that want to hear the message of recovery, and they're getting in the way of it. They stopped talking. But I want to tell you, too, what happened. The one is now dead, and the other one, the last I knew, she was in prison. We can become our own hindrance to recovery, too. So, when I think that text is so important to reply to in the meeting, maybe it's going to keep me from getting what I need to get. And having said that, I'm going to close with this. I remember a guy in a meeting, actually a couple sponsors ago, he shared with me how angry he was about this guy who was always on his phone in the meeting. And he confronted him after the meeting. And I want to say this before I forget. This is what I was taught. Praise publicly, and then correct privately. So having said that, he went up to the person after the meeting, and he says, hey, he goes, I got to point out the fact that you're pretty distracting being on your phone during the whole meeting like that. And he apologized, and he goes, I'm so sorry. He goes, maybe I'll bring a pen and paper or something instead. He goes, but I actually have short-term memory problems. And he goes, I'm taking notes. So we never know, but I think it's important, especially for me, to always remember to be mindful of the newcomer, to never be a hindrance, to try to stay as a warrior, a crusader for the new person and not the bear. Appreciate all you guys, man. It's been a great day so far. Look forward to more. I'll pass it. Turns out I didn't need to answer that text.
Good.
Shock. I was just watching my time.
Hi, my name is Jack. I'm a real alcoholic.
Jack.
And what a wonderful day this has been. The people that have shared from their heart, and their shared things are so important to us. And Mike, I want to thank you and your group for putting on such an event. I've been around this fellowship since 1983. And finally that was 41 years ago, finally I'm 37 years sober. My dry date is March 9th, 1987. And I say my dry date because I thought because I wasn't drinking and I was going to AA meetings that I was sober. And that went on for about 9 years. Until I ran into somebody that sat me down. Of course, he was in Indianapolis, I was here in Akron. And he had me read the book and underline where, in pencil, where I identified with it. And he said, I want you to do that, and then when you call me, I'll give you what I have underlined and pages to go to verify that, so that you'll have something of depth and weight that you can work with another alcoholic and change their lives. And it's really pretty darn good. It's kept me sober. And it's kept a couple other people sober too. They had something to give away. And the beautiful thing of that is that God abhors a vacuum. So if I give away everything that I've got, I can't outgive God. He backs that dual tandem axle up and dumps wonderful gifts into my life. I'm going to try and, we've heard pretty much about the do's and don'ts, the etiquette of AA. Some of the etiquette we haven't touched on. And it was a more than true statement when you said AA has certainly changed since I got here. When I got here in '83, there were still a few people that were 12-stepping with K-Rose syrup or blackstrap molasses and orange juice to keep an alcoholic from going into shock. I don't think there's 20% of us that have any knowledge of that today, of how to do that. At the time I was getting sober, it was probably 40 or 50% of our population in these rooms that knew how to do that. So things have certainly changed. Some of the things that I want to share are things that I can't remember, so there are things that I'm going to read to you because I think they're so pertinent. One of them is it's called Making Known the Biblical History and Roots of Alcoholics Anonymous. And it talks about, I think it's 23,900 references, biblical references, to our big book. That's huge. And it talks in there where Ann Smith, Dr. Bob's wife, says that, of course, the Bible ought to be a source of the main source of all. That by reading the book of Acts and following up with the Gospels and the epistles of Paul and Psalms. She talks about reading Psalms. Now, whenever I think of the Bible and I think about why would I read Psalms, well, look at David. He killed Goliath, and after that, he takes a man's wife and sends that man out on the front line of the army to be killed in battle. So there's no qualms about him taking his wife. And this man is from the family of which our Savior comes. We also want to take a look at Paul. Here's a guy that, when he was Saul, before he was struck blind, who tortured and killed the followers of Christ. And he's written, I think, 12 or 13 books in the Bible and is a chosen disciple of Christ. And we take a look at who we are and who we've been and what we've done. And the gift he's provided for us. Certainly I am not deserving of the life I have today. So this is the message we carry. This is our responsibility. Right? What a wonderful life I have today. I'll read just a little. It's Dr. Bob's. This is the third step prayer used by Dr. Bob. And he says, "Dear God, I'm sorry about the mess I've made in my life. I want to turn away from all the wrong things I've ever done and all the wrong things I've ever been. Please forgive me for all of it. I know you have the power to change my life. and can turn me into a winner. Thank you, God, for getting my attention long enough to interest me in trying your way. God, please take over the management of my life and everything about me. I am making this conscious decision to turn my will and my life over to your care, and am asking you to please take over all parts of my life. God, please, God, move into my heart. However you do it, it's your business. But make yourself real inside of me and fill my awful emptiness. Fill me with your love and Holy Spirit, and make me know your will for me. And now, God, help yourself to me and keep on doing it. I'm not sure if I want you, but do it anyway. I rejoice that I am now a part of your people, that my uncertainty is gone forever, and that you now have control of my will and my life. Thank you, and I praise you in your name. Amen. Amen. So, when I first came to Akron, I was about 14 months sober. I had come from California. And in California, I wore a cowboy hat everywhere I went. And I went to a certain prestigious West Side meeting wearing my cowboy hat. And there was a woman there that says, "Hey, you're in the church in the AA meeting, take your hat off." I said, "Well, I don't think God cares if I wear a hat in an AA meeting in a church." And she said, "Well, I do." You know me, maybe you don't know me. I said, "You're not God." Well, about a week later, I was on my way to Toronto with a friend, and he said, "Here, take this, it'll keep you awake." And there went my sobriety date. At that time, my sobriety date was June 10th, 1985. So luckily that was removed from me, and my ego was thoroughly smashed. So that whenever I came back, I was able to keep my pride in my pocket and do what we're supposed to do here. You know, picking up ashtrays, getting there early, like Mike had talked about earlier, except I wasn't as much of a go-getter as Mike was. And actually, through much of my sobriety, I wasn't as much of a go-getter. Mike had done the wonderful thing. I used to do workshops where I would bring people that spoke at Founders Day into AA and do weekends with them, and they would tell us about how they went through the steps and got sober. These people were from a group called the Fellowship of the Spirit in Denver. And they got that name because in 1975 at the World Convention, there was a fellow that came down from Manitoba, Canada, and talked about how he had worked with a number of people in a group and took them through the steps. And those that finished the 9th step and made all their amends continued to stay sober for the rest of their lives. So this group in California, the young people's group in Denver, did the same thing. They got together and went through the book together as a group. And all of those people, they got up to the 3rd step prayer, and they said, "Well, we'll make our list." Everybody make their list. And Eddie Durkin says, "I'm not making any list. I didn't do no 4th step." And Eddie went out that night and drank, and he crawled up in the storefront on Latimer Street and froze to death. So the fellow that came down from Manitoba was a fellow named Mac Jeter. And Mac had a sponsor, Cease Corbin. And Cease Corbin worked with another fellow as a sponsor, and that was Tom Ivister. And Tom was a fellow that had run down and killed 2 people in a blackout up in Flint, Michigan. And after 3 years, he was supposed to do 20 years. After 3 years, they sent him home. They sent him back to North Carolina. And he got a job as a warden in a prison. And, well, you think that's funny. He retired as director of prisons of North Carolina.
Wow.
And this Mac Jeter sponsored him, and Mac Jeter and Tom, and a fellow named Don Pritz who was one of the young people in the 14 people that did the workshop. Well, he went to North Carolina, and he went back and forth. He worked with Tom Ivister in the prisons. So Mac Jeter's in behind this thing all the time and going through the deal together as a group. Well, that's what I was doing. I was showing people how we can do this together, and we used to have about 12 workshops a week going on. And Mike did the wise thing. He created a home group, and that home group didn't work, so he created another home group. And this home group has taken root, and it's shown fantastic results. And he grew, has 40 home group members, is an amazing group. And it's, I'm proud to be a part of this, and I'm proud to be a friend to you, all of you. And I thank you so much for the opportunity to speak today. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
I'm Klay, I'm an alcoholic.
Klay.
Guess I gotta close us out. We'll break, and then we'll be back here at 3. But I wanted to thank each of you. I think it's kind of a variety of 4 years, 30 years, and 40 years of sobriety that we had up on the stand today. And you know, Mark, you brought up that definition of etiquette. It's socially acceptable. I think we all come from different walks of life. It tells us in the book, and we're all a group of people that aren't supposed to mix. I remember one time I went on a dinner. Wasn't related to AA. I was 21 years old. Thought I was somebody. High-end, high-wealth clients of the guy I was working under of an internship. And we're at dinner, and I come from a decent family in my mind. You know, I think I know a little bit how to handle myself when I go out to dinner. Well, I got water and had a lemon, and I squirted it, and it literally squirted on the client. It was soup. It was lobster soup. One of the first times I had lobster soup, it was so good, I picked up the little bowl and was eating it. We get in the car, and Josh looks at me and he goes, "What the F were you just doing?" I had no idea. It wasn't relative to me. We all come from different walks of life, and you don't know what everyone's been through. Some people might not have ever had dinner with a family. So keep that in mind when you do talk to them privately after the meeting. You know, you asked Cory, should I say something? You know, me being as young as I am into this program, again, reintroducing myself, I probably shouldn't, you know. I spoke up on Monday's meeting, and Mike came up to me and he's like, "What the hell are you doing? Shut up and listen." I think there's a time where all of us should do that, you know. These older guys and the guys that have been in the program and went through these steps multiple times and helped multiple people, those are the ones we should probably listen to. So I probably should have shut up and listened before I said this, but hell with it. I like to talk, and I can't tell you guys, each of you, enough. Thank you, because I didn't know what to expect. So great job. Thank you.
Thanks,
We'll see you at 3.
Thanks.